An absolutely brutal blow to Iowa wrestling fans. Number 4 ranked 197 pounder Mo Endene for the Hawkeyes is no longer on the Iowa wrestling team. Now, there's a lot of different aspects of this story that have real relevance and importance. How did we get here? On Monday, Mo Endene was informed by the coaching staff it was over. He wasn't on the team anymore. He was no longer an Iowa Hawkeye. Um, this is, obviously surprising given what a great season he was having. He was kind of the hero of national duels, beating Cody Merrill at Oklahoma State, punching Iowa's ticket to the NDI finals. And then he followed it up with a huge win against Pitt, Stout, to get to number 4 in the rankings. He wrestled at Iowa State, lost to Elam, and we hadn't seen him since. He's been dealing with an injury. He also recently, very recently, like within the last week, had a baby, his first daughter. So it's unclear if those were factors, or if there's other factors that were involved, and that led to the departure from Endene from the Iowa wrestling team. But ultimately, this was Coach Tom Brand's decision to no longer have Endene on the team. Now, what is next for Endene is really unclear. From what I've gathered, he is not considered a medical at this point. That's not something he's thinking about. There's teams floating out there that people have theorized he's going to transfer to. That sounds, from what I've learned, those teams and that angle has totally been fabricated at this point. Now, the truth will come out over time, but that's what I know so far. But really what is more relevant than the why, it's like, okay, well, what happens next? What does this ultimately mean for the Iowa Hawkeyes? And this is a team, Iowa, that sits currently in 3rd place in the FloWrestling team tournament rankings. The loss of Endene's points will drop them from 3rd to 5th in what is a very, very competitive race for an NCAA trophy, which goes to the top 4 teams. So now the top 4, with Endene out of the mix, are going to be Penn State, Ohio State, Iowa State, and Oklahoma State, with Iowa now back in 5th, pretty close to the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So what does Iowa do at 197 now? There's a handful of options, none ideal, but I think there's some that are better than others. Now, they have a blue chip recruit in Harvey Luddington from New Jersey who sits there. It's his true freshman year. He has wrestled quite a few matches this year, but against Division I opponents, he sits at 5-3. He's lost his last 3 matches. His last 2 losses have been to guys that are, not ranked high, not expected to be All-American contenders. So you kind of know your level there with Harvey Luddington and where he could potentially produce. Seems clear to me that this year, Harvey's not a guy that's going to contend for All-American honors. That could change, but you don't normally see that kind of a jump from, losing to the, 28th-ish ranked guy to jump into the podium for a true freshman. Now, in a year, I could certainly see Harvey making those strides. So that's my long way of saying it feels like you don't use Harvey here because his points aren't going to score meaningfully, and there's maybe some other options that make more sense, like Gabe Arnold, big recruit, NCAA qualifier last year at 184. He's without a starting spot at present, right? Patrick Kennedy's holding down 74. Angelo Ferrari's ranked number 1 in America at 184. And now you have not ideal weight class for Gabe. He's not big, but is he the best point scoring option this year for Iowa at 197? With Endene gone, I would contend that's the case. They also have a guy named Brody Sampson. I don't think he's going to be a relevant point scoring option for the Hawks. So for me, from an eligibility down the line standpoint, it makes sense to wrestle Gabe, redshirt Harvey, get him ready for action next year. The timing of this for Iowa, really tough. They're about to enter Big Ten season. They've got Penn State on Friday. Penn State's, everyone knows what they've been, what they're doing right now. They haven't lost a match within a dual meet in quite some time. They just 10-0'd Rutgers, North Dakota State, and Stanford in their last couple of duels. So they are truly rolling right now. And the match is going to be at Carver Hawkeye Arena. And this was one of the matches where you're pretty intrigued to see how does Endene stack up against the great Josh Barr, ranked number 1 in America. Now we're not going to know. So big question on who Iowa is ultimately going to use there at 197. So we don't know the future for Iowa at 197. We don't know the future for Endene. Sounds like wrestling next year is maybe a possibility, but would have to get a medical, and Certainly seems like the Endene at Iowa era is now over. And really, for Iowa fans, this was such a feel-good story. A guy comes from a Division III. There's all these questions. How well can he actually wrestle at this level? And you find out in a month, wow, a guy that we didn't know what you were going to get, he's a top 4 wrestler. And for it to, basically fizzle out and be done by second semester has got to be tough, because this was a real bright spot for an Iowa team, which, apart from Angelo and Michael Caliendo, has really been searching for those bright spots. It's been more, I would say, more disappointments or underachieving at weights than the Endenes, which really provided a nice counterbalance to that. And now it's another really tough aspect of the Iowa season. But as it stands, they're still the 5th ranked team in the country. They still have a very legitimate chance to bring home an NCAA trophy. But the margin for error now becomes very, very narrow for the Iowa Hawkeyes. So that's the deal. Endene was told by Iowa, you're not on the team anymore. Don't know what's happening with Endene. Don't know who Iowa's going to wrestle. Coach Brand said, hey, Ludington's really good, and we're going to be careful with how we use him with his dates and all that stuff being considered. So that's the deal. That's what's up with Iowa. What are your thoughts on what Iowa should do at 197? And what do you think's next for Mo Endene?